So then we will now call to order this meeting of the Marin Local Agency Formation Committee today, Thursday, February 11th, 2021 at 7 p.m. or at 7:02 p.m. And Olivia, would you please call the roll?
Of course. Vice Chair Murray.
Here.
Commissioner Connolly.
Here.
Commissioner Arnold.
Here.
Commissioner Kohler.
Here.
Commissioner Caius.
Sorry, I was muted. Here.
Commissioner Loader.
Here.
Chair McEntee.
Here.
And then Commissioner Moody.
Here.
Commissioner Skelton.
Here.
Commissioner Campbell.
Present.
And finally, Commissioner Rodoni is absent. And Chair, we have quorum.
Thank you so much. We'll now move on to agenda review. Would anyone like to make a request to remove or rearrange any items? And would any commissioner? Seeing none, is there any public comment to adjust the agenda?
There are no hands raised and we have no emails.
Okay, so seeing none, I'll close public comment, bring it back to the commission. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move it.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Olivia, would you please call the roll?
Of course, Vice Chair Murray.
Aye.
Commissioner Connolly.
Aye.
Commissioner Arnold.
Aye.
Commissioner Kohler.
Aye.
Commissioner Caius.
Aye.
Commissioner Loader.
Aye.
And Chair McEntee.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Olivia. We'll now move on to public open time. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons desiring to address the commission on any matter not on the current agenda. All statements that require a response will be referred to staff for reply in writing or will be placed on the commission's agenda for consideration at a later meeting. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes.
We have no hands raised and no emails received.
Okay, so seeing no public open time comments, we'll go ahead and close public open time and we'll move on to the consent calendar. Would any commissioners like to pull any items from consent?
I'll move the consent.
Second.
Okay. Actually, before we do that, would any member of the public like to pull an item or comment on an item on the consent calendar?
We have no hands raised and no emails received.
Okay, so seeing no comments, we'll close public comment on this item. We have a motion and a second. Olivia, will you please call the roll?
Vice Chair Murray.
Aye.
Commissioner Connolly.
Aye.
Commissioner Arnold.
Aye.
Commissioner Kohler.
Aye.
Commissioner Caius.
Aye.
Commissioner Loader.
Aye.
Chair McEntee.
Aye.
Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to our public hearing items. Item number 4, approval of resolution 21-01, annexation of 2000 Point San Pedro Road to San Rafael Sanitary District. Jason, will you please give the staff report?
Sure. Actually, I'm going to yield over to Olivia, who is now taking over charge of our basic applications. So she'll give the staff report.
This is a very straightforward application. We received an application from applicant Brendan Hickey in November of 2020. His parcel is zoned for construction, but it is not yet developed, and he's looking to connect to San Rafael Sanitary District. The parcel is incorporated in San Rafael. And all of the agency reviews that we've received have been positive or neutral. So staff's recommendation is to approve the application and the annexation into San Rafael Sanitary District. The other alternative is to continue this to another meeting or deny the application.
Thank you very much, Olivia. Are there any questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none, is there any public comment on this item? Would the applicant like to speak?
The applicant indicated that they had no wish to speak unless anyone had questions for them. And we have no other public members with their hands raised and no emails received.
And now here's the dog. Okay, so Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the commission for deliberation. Any deliberative comments? I don't know whether Commissioner Connolly, as this being his district, has any comments.
None in particular. Thanks.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the requested annexation of 2000 Point St. Pedro Road to San Rafael Sanitary District and approve the attached resolution number 21-01.
Is this the item that we had the gentleman on the phone about?
Yes.
So it'd be great to hear from him.
Okay. He didn't have any indication to wish to speak, but if you have questions for him or want him to, he's willing to.
I know, simply offering that
Okay.
option.
I'll second.
Mr. Hickey, do you have any comments?
No, I think Olivia has said it all. I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have. I'm looking forward to building a house on the parcel if we can connect up with the local sewer, which, you know, there's frontage right there, so it shouldn't be a problem logistically.
Okay. And Jason, this is within the SOI of the San Rafael Sanitary, I would assume.
Yes.
Okay, great. I think did we have a motion, but do we have a second?
Yes.
Second.
Craig.
Oh, we have a second. Okay, great. Olivia, will you call the roll, please?
Of course. Vice Chair Murray,
Aye.
Commissioner Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner Arnold,
Aye.
Commissioner Kohler,
Aye.
Commissioner Caius,
Aye.
Commissioner Loader,
Aye.
Chair McEntee.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Fantastic. Thank you for your work on this, Olivia. I'm glad to see that you're taking on more responsibility. Okay, we'll move on to our next public hearing item, item number 5, approval of resolution 21-02 to dissolve County Service Area 23 pursuant to Government Code Section 56879. Is this Jason or Olivia?
This is me.
Okay.
So this item is in some ways a repeat from the last meeting. You may remember that we had 2 CSAs that are no longer functioning. They were used to purchase land. Everything has been paid off. They don't own any assets as the land has been transferred to County Open Space District or Rec and Park District. I forget which one it was, but it's been transferred to the county for them to oversee. And this is just getting rid of the CSA that was used to pay for it. This is the second part of a 2-part step. The first part was last time we say we wanted to put it on. Now today you have to actually officially dissolve it. We did notice this in the paper and received no comments back from anybody about this dissolution.
Thank you, Jason. Are there any questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none, is there any public comment on this item?
We have no hands raised and no emails received.
Okay, seeing no public comment, we'll go ahead and close the public comment and bring it back to the commission for deliberation. Jason says this is a CSA, it's a dependent district and it doesn't have its own independent board. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, it's the County Board of Supervisors changing their hat and becoming the CSA Board of Directors.
Okay, good. Any deliberative comments or does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll move it.
I'll make a second.
Oh, what'd you say, Barbara?
I thought I might actually have to say more than I'll move it, but I'm okay with that. I was just going to say approve the attached resolution to approve the dissolution of CSA 23.
Thank you. So moved and seconded. Olivia, will you please call the roll?
Olivia, you're muted.
Of course, Vice Chair Murray,
Aye.
Commissioner Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner Arnold,
You muted, Judy.
Aye.
Commissioner Kohler,
Aye.
Commissioner Caius,
Aye.
Commissioner Loader,
Aye.
Chair McEntee.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Thank you very much, Olivia. Okay, we'll move on to public hearing item number 6, approval of a resolution 21-03 to dissolve County Service Area 25 pursuant to Government Code Section 56879. Jason?
Repeat the last staff report, change it from San Rafael to Novato area. with one change. We did receive one phone call about this the day we put the public notice in the paper. Someone who was concerned that we were getting rid of the open space, when I explained to them that the open space isn't going away. It's simply the funding mechanism that created the open space. They seemed perfectly happy and fine with it at that point, and that's the only public interaction I've had on that CSA dissolution.
Okay, very good. Any questions from the commission? Seeing none, we'll open up public comment on this item.
No hands raised, no
hearing.
emails received.
Okay, so seeing none, we'll close public comment. Mala, do you care if I say public comment or public hearing? Would you prefer if I said public hearing?
Probably better to say public hearing, but I know that that's what you mean since you
Okay.
indicated on the agenda these were all public hearings.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll go ahead and seeing no public comment on this, we will go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for deliberation or a motion. Any deliberative comments or a motion, please?
I'll move.
second,
Moved and seconded. Olivia, please call the roll.
Vice Chair Murray,
Aye.
Commissioner Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner Arnold,
aye,
Commissioner Kohler,
Aye.
Commissioner Caius,
Aye.
Commissioner Loader,
Aye.
Chair McEntee.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Thank you very much, Olivia. We will move on to item number 7, which is presentation of the Novato Region Supplemental Municipal Service Review for Marin County Flood Control and Water Conservation District Zone 1 Public Draft. Jason?
I'm going to yield to Olivia, who's the main author of this report, to give the presentation.
Okay, let me share my screen. Give me 1 second. There we go. So this is a presentation of the Novato Region Supplemental Marin County Flood Control and Water Conservation District Zone 1. And this is a supplemental service review for the Novato Service Review, which was completed in the last year or two. There we go. So this is just a quick map of flood control zone 1. It's a relatively large zone, as you can see. And the black line that you see, the thick outline, is the boundary of the city of Novato, so that you all have a frame of reference for what portions the flood zone covers compared to what parts of the city that the flood zone covers. And this map is actually an addition from the already published draft that Commissioner Kohler recommended. Our initial draft only had the outline of the flood zone, and Commissioner Kohler recommended adding the boundaries of the city of Novato, which we all thought was a great addition.
mm,
So this is for Flood Control Zone 1, whose service is to reduce frequency and severity of flooding in the watershed in Novato watershed area. And just a quick overview of Flood Zone 1, it was established in 1955, and it is the largest flood zone in the county at 49 square miles. It maintains 4 pump stations and 9 miles of levee, and covers all of the city of Novato, as well as a large swath of unincorporated land and surrounding Novato. Asterisk here, it says all of the city of Novato. That's something we need to follow up on, because as you can see in this map, there's a small portion of Novato that isn't showing up as within the flood control zone's jurisdiction. And we're curious if that's just a GIS thing, or if it's actually that the sphere of influence of the flood zone, not the sphere of influence, but the boundary of the flood zone isn't necessarily completely cohesive with the boundaries of the city of Novato.
Well, so good thing that was that Barbara's suggestion to add that line in. It's good. That's a really great catch. Thank you, Commissioner Kohler.
And another thing to know about this flood zone is that it is funded by one benefit assessment that was passed in 1984. The flood zone tried to pass a new benefit assessment in 2017, and it failed with the 2/3 majority against it. So these are determinations requiring additional efforts moving forward that came out of this report. The first thing that we made a determination on that has actions necessary is the future financial stability of governmental bodies covered. Flood Zone 1 does have a lagging income source. The income source currently covers general maintenance, but is insufficient to fund larger projects necessary to flood control service provision. And staff is suggesting that the district work to create a more permanent long-term funding source to help meet the needs in the future, potentially from residents or grants. The flood zone is currently aggressively pursuing grant funding in a lot of different avenues, particularly focusing on sustainability, since that's such a hot button topic right now and can qualify you for a lot of grants. But LAFCO does still have concerns about the reliability of grants, particularly because they're competitive and because they require matching, which will still put a funding stress on Flood Zone 1. And I go into this in more depth in my report, but the longer the maintenance lags and the larger projects lag behind, the more upfront costs there are for the flood zone, because the infrastructure they currently have is slowly falling behind and requires more like Band-Aid maintenance that costs money but doesn't fix the problem. As for accountability for community service needs, including governmental structure and operational efficiencies, because of the size of this flood control zone, there are a lot of different agencies that operate within the flood control zone. And although the flood control zone may not be in charge of certain types of infrastructure, though that infrastructure still has an impact on flood control management. So that LAFCO is making a recommendation that other agencies, along with the flood control district, look into creating a comprehensive map, ideally making it accessible to the general public, that dictates which agencies are responsible for which infrastructure, making accountability easier between agencies, and giving clear direction to the general public when determining who to contact about issues with certain infrastructure. Flood Zone 1 staff mentioned that sometimes when the general public comes to one agency looking for help on a piece of infrastructure, they kind of get thrown around because the first agency they go to isn't necessarily in charge of the infrastructure that the public had contacted that agency about. In addition to that, along with accountability for community service needs, including governmental structure and operational efficiencies, it is also recommended that the flood zone create more frequent forums which bring together different stakeholders in the area, such as SMART and Caltrans, as well as the City of Novato and other local agencies, because cooperation among these agencies will improve service provision in the area given the size of this flood zone. Although flood control services are just one piece of the puzzle, it's possible that some of these agencies may have interests that align with one another. For example, flooding impacts Highway 37 and also some of the SMART railways. And the City of Novato has to do flood control maintenance within their city boundaries. And so working with the flood control zone could reduce costs for both of them when working towards a common goal. As of February 3rd, public comments received. This was presented to the advisory board on February 4th, and high-level comments were given at this meeting, and we're expecting advisory board members to submit other comments. Some other comments have been received from Commissioner Kohler, and public comment period closes Friday, March 5th. We will continue to reevaluate the report as comments come in. Any questions?
Before we get to questions from commissioners, there's a couple things I wanted to add in. We did talk with the Flood Control Zone Board, and while Olivia may have glossed over it, they were extremely happy with the report. A couple of comments that they made, just so you're aware, and to embarrass Olivia a little bit today. It's one of them said this report has the most amount of information. They knew a lot of the items that were in the report, but they weren't in one place. This report actually puts a lot of stuff into one place, which they were happy with. And one of the longer serving advisory board members made a comment that there were parts of the history they were not even aware of that we included in our report. So I wanted to give Olivia some props for doing such a comprehensive report for us. It's a draft report, so we still will be making comments and making changes before we present you a final one at the next meeting.
Great.
That's fantastic. And, you know, we have always held that our goal as a commission is to add value, and this is a clear indication of that. I'm sorry, Commissioner Arnold, did you have something?
No, I was just going to say that I thought Rachel did a great report, and I'm happy to move it when
the time comes.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. Jason, I do have a question before, I don't know if anyone else does, but so I know we talked about doing the flood control districts kind of in a separate go. What's our thought about how we're managing the flood control districts, and are we comparing one to the other in terms of their, you know?
Yeah, there's definitely
stability. Yeah.
There definitely is comparison going on. That we are doing the flood control zones now with the regions that they fall within, because the district had suggested that since they are so independent of each other. But one of the things that we've noticed is, like, as we've been going through these, like, I've done one, Olivia's now done one, Jaren's done some with his bigger reports that he does for his regional ones, is like the budgets are done differently between each zone. And so one of the things that the district is now doing based on our recommendation is looking to see about getting their budgets to be streamlined amongst all the various things. So when we come and look at them, we're looking at the same basic budgets, even though they have different types of things they do. It's easier for us to understand and read them and not have to figure out, well, what does this mean? It meant one thing over in one zone. It means something different in another zone.
Right.
So we are doing some
Fantastic.
of those types of comparisons when we're looking at them between each report and kind of giving suggestions to the district. And I will say that the district staff has been extremely incredibly good to work with. When we have questions, they answer them. They will help us track things down. They are very interested in seeing these reports done and think that they are definitely value added for them in the work that they do. So I'm very happy with that. And I will note that you have 3 hands raised. Chair, back into you for who wishes to speak.
Thank you very much. So I'll ask first of the commission, does anyone on the commission have questions for staff? Okay, yes, looks like Commissioner, oh, did you mean hands among the commission or hands among the public?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Commissioner Kohler.
Commissioner Kohler,
You're
unmute
muted.
yourself, please.
I was doing it. I
Okay.
can't still move that fast. So I had provided some of these comments beforehand. And thank you, Olivia, for fixing that map. But one of the things, I'm not sure how available the information is, but I think Olivia did a good job discussing the fact that there needs to be a lot more money for capital replacements. And I wonder if we can get more clarity on what type of, what we really need to replace. I actually looked on their website and it's not very helpful. So you got more out of it than I did for sure and did a much better job clearly. But it looks like it would be good to really outline, it looks like there's some major pumps that are going to go out. And it seems to me that if we could talk in more detail about some of the equipment that really needs replacement, not the Band-Aid, that might also help them in the future about raising money. And one of the questions I had was something that Olivia mentioned, benefit assessment, which I'm not familiar with that term. It looks like what they did in the old days was a special assessment of $9 per parcel. And then they tried to do what looks like a parcel tax for this capital replacement. Those are kind of different sorts of things. Both would be special purpose tax. So there isn't any way to get away from that. But I'm wondering if we should make some more suggestions about, what kind of level, even if all they did was increase their special assessment from that $9, which has no inflator in it, that might be helpful. So I kind of am concerned just reading this that these guys are going to be in significant trouble. And I know Olivia did some discussion of sea level rise and some of the impacts that we're seeing that we're going to get worse. I wonder if we can help them by maybe really talking about the dangers more of not replacing this equipment. What kind of equipment? Do we have a better feel for the range of costs needed? And I think that would be kind of helpful for them. Just another little piece is there was a lot of talk about grants. Almost all, I know very few grants or none that you don't have to match. So there's always going to be a match. And I think what Olivia explained tonight was really helpful, that it's hard for them to even get grants because they don't have the money for a match. And so maybe there's a way to tie that in a bit. But the other question I have is there's a table 5.3 that lists the advisory members, and there's just a typo. It says James Gross, it's James Grossi, who ran for supervisor a few years ago. So I think you did a great job, and those are just some of the questions I sent in. Hopefully, if you're able to get more information, you can beef this up a little bit in those areas, because I think it would help the flood control advisory members to consider, the longer they wait, it's going to be harder and the equipment's just going to fail. And I think there's a danger. You talk about people getting flood insurance, but I think there's a danger of them losing their flood insurance. So maybe those are areas that we might want to point out. So I guess those weren't questions. Those are more comments. I apologize. All right. I said questions earlier. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kohler. Vice Chair Murray, and then we'll go to alternate Commissioner Skelton.
Actually, I think Chris is up first. Chris, if you want to go, you can.
Well, will you do you first, Craig, since
Okay.
you're a regular member and Chris is an alternate?
All right, got it. So thank you, Olivia. Great news. Good to hear. Always good to hear reports back from satisfied groups on the draft reports. coming in. I do think the maps are very, very important. And, you know, this is a real problematic area for Marin. We have St. Vincent's kind of bordering the Las Colinas area. We have the SF Bay Trail running through the spine there. And then more importantly, we had federal property and the outer levees breached to create this water intrusion closer to the homes there in Nevada. So very important. I think that story, particularly since I don't think it was captured in the last report, it is put there to make folks ready. And I say that because I just came from the TAM BPAC meeting, and they TAM staff, David Chan there, said there are mobility quick strike funds available. We only have about 2 weeks. There's close to $3 million available for Marin, but you have to have a NEPA and you have to have basically shovel ready, which means you have to go through all your design. And I know there's some sections, there's a small gap of the Bay Trail right there in that flood zone. So that's the level of detail. I think that's important. So as Barbara was talking about, hey, how do we get the funds needed? I mean, that would help a levy, help this zone, also help some of the other things that are additional benefits to the flood zone, which is recreational opportunities, things like this. Also, in Marin, we're doing more regional projects. So we're not just kind of in our own silos of government. Recycled water, it's coming from the 94903 area, Santa Fe, to Novato. So those locations where those pipelines are within this flood zone, you mentioned about SMART, I think all that infrastructure needs kind of a little deeper dive. I'm not sure if County JS Marin Mapping has mapped that up, but that would be just kind of my suggestions or questions, Olivia, to really see if that could be tackled as part of the LAFCO effort to help everybody tee things up and create a future where we could pivot pretty quickly and grab funds when they come available to make those improvements. But again, thanks very much.
Thank you, Vice Chair Murray. Alternate Commissioner Skelton, your questions?
Yeah, Olivia, I wasn't really clear from the draft when the last MSR was for the flood zone District 1, and whether or not there was any information in the prior report that might be appropriate to reincorporate either as somewhat of a reflection, you know, where they were, what they've accomplished, and where they still need to go, something along those lines. I 100% echo the two prior commissioners' comments, and in particular, Commissioner Kohler. One aspect that is really concerning is that grant funding is a primary source of revenue. That you even, I think, explicitly said in your comments, that's not a reliable source. And I think it's really, really dangerous to rely on that. Also, dovetailing with Commissioner Kohler's comments about the essentially flood insurance, and I don't know, I mean, it's not our role, or I don't think it's our role or responsibility to educate the district on how to effectively market a campaign for its residents and constituents. But I suspect even a nominal increase in that benefit assessment from the 80s, the $9, just getting it up to something more manageable, the incremental cost per parcel would probably be offset by the reduced flood insurance premiums or increases. I don't know if there's any way to objectively quantify that or to confirm whether or not that suspicion is accurate, but in the absence of some really meaningful funding mechanisms, I have serious concerns about like long-term viability, especially when the four pump stations you reference are either beyond their useful life or nearing the end of their capacity and are accruing tens of thousands of dollars in just sort of bootstrap maintenance a year. So I'm not sure if that's for us to decide, but I think we need to really press the district in how to be better better fiscally managed, it seems like. So anyways, yeah, my question just goes back to the prior MSR.
Commissioner Arnold?
Yes, thank you. I think you mentioned in 2017, they went for a sales tax, property tax.
Property tax.
Yeah, and it lost because the leader of the campaign was Dietz Stroh, and he was getting funding. We were getting the campaign ready, and Dietz unexpectedly died, and there just was no one else to take the helm. I was running, so I couldn't, and so we're working on coming back, and of course, COVID has kind of messed everything up, but we are coming back. We know that this needs to be done, but it's a great group of people that know this area well, that, Novato has the second worst flooding in Marin. The first one, of course, is the Ross Valley. So we're aware of it, and hopefully, I'm really hoping that we can get this, get the ballot together soon.
Thank you. I wanted to add a couple of quick comments just to address some of the stuff that the commissioners brought up. Thank you first off for all of your comments. We always do appreciate it.
Actually, before you jump in, can I just ask one thing that might be a framing question? There were a lot of great suggestions in there, and as alternate Commissioner Skelton mentioned, I'm not sure kind of where the line is for LAFCO. Could you just, before you get into that, talk about LAFCO's role as far as putting the MSR together and identifying these things, and then what's our role in pursuing that further, or what's the impact of somebody not being financially sustainable? So what's our role as a commission versus their role?
I will do my best to answer this. Mala may want to jump in from a legal standpoint as to what we can do, because from my understanding from a legal standpoint, all we can do is identify that there's an issue and a problem. It's up to the district or agency to actually figure out what it is that they need to do to fix the problem. I always like to say, our job is to raise a red flag saying, warning, there's a problem here, figure it out, fix it. But we have no official role to play in how they actually do it. They need to figure out their own way to do it. If they were looking to do an expansion or boundary change or something where we had legal authority over it, at that point we could say, no, you can't do, we're not going to offer, if it was a latent power type thing or expansion of the boundaries, we could step in and say, you can't do that because you can't afford to do your own stuff right now. But if it's just a matter of you're not changing anything, excuse me, there's nothing we can do about it. So I think that, it's great to have these discussions and make sure people are aware of it. One of the reasons why, which I was going to get into, why we talk so much about the grant funding stuff is, from what I was told at least, there was the argument on the no side was, you don't need to raise our rates, you just need to go find more grant money. And so that's why we have a discussion in here about grant funding as being not a reliable source. So if in the future someone goes back to do a ballot measure and they try and say grant funding, there's at least an independent report out there that says, don't rely on grant funding to do this very important work. You actually need to raise money. The 2017 ballot measure wanted to raise for a single family home parcel up to $47. It's currently $9. If you were just to do an inflationary rate thing, you should be somewhere in the $20 to $25 range. If I'm just like doing very high level math in my head is to inflationary stuff from when the original stuff was done, you would be somewhere between $20 to $25. So clearly they were going for a little bit more than that. Perhaps in the future, not really our place to say how much they should go for. They should figure that out, need to, from a political standpoint on their own. But they clearly, need to figure out a funding source. And I will always say, anytime anyone asks me, if you're ever doing a flat fee parcel tax, that's not to pay for a very specific thing that has an end date to it, like, paying off a bond or something like that, that you always need to have a cost of living inflation put onto what you're doing now. Because this is the perfect example. $9 back then is not nearly the same thing as $9 is today. Without that inflation, every district's everyone who relies on that type of funding runs into this problem.
Okay, thank you, Jason. And sorry, did you cover all the other stuff you wanted to cover? I just wanted to kind
Yeah,
of frame up like where our role is in this.
Yeah, that's our role. And yeah, I think I covered, we'll look at everyone's comments that are made today. We'll throw that in with all the other comments that we get. And we're going to, Olivia and I and district staff will work to try and address as much as we can. One thing I do want to mention, Commissioner Kohler, that you made about the infrastructure. One of the issues that we have is, and you'll see in the report, is there's a mention about not like needing to come up with that inventory that Olivia mentioned in her presentation. It's not always clear exactly who's responsible for what. So the first step is they need to have a good inventory so we then know what infrastructure does the district physically need to be upgrading itself and what infrastructure is someone else's responsibility to upgrade. Because that's not always clear in how everything's been run in the past. So, and the district staff is 100% on board with trying to figure out how to do that inventory because they agree it's a needed thing at this point.
Thank you so much. If there are no more questions, we'll go to public. We'll open the public hearing on this item.
There are no hands raised other than commissioners who have already spoken and probably should lower their hands. And there's no emails received. Okay, so seeing no further public comment, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing on this item and bring it back to the commission for deliberation. This is an information only item, so no motion is required, but if there are any further deliberative comments, now would be the time to make them. Commissioner Kohler?
Yeah, I just, first of all, thank you, everyone. I think I would say this, for those of us that are used to reading these kind of detailed reports, I think we saw that there is a red flag raised. I don't think it would come across to a lot of folks. There's a lot of language in here that sort of seems to discount the idea of, I mean, that's why I think if we can, we really need to beef up just showing how dire this is. I mean, those pump stations are going to go out. Those people are going to be flooded. They're going to lose their flood insurance. So I think if we can beef it up a little bit more, and I think that will help as they bring this back for whatever they do in the future, you know, we need to raise.
They have a brand new, they have a new pump station.
Okay, but they have 3 others that are not new, right?
But it's functional, yes.
Yeah, but yeah, that's a good point. I just think we need to raise the red flag a little bit more, which I think will help the flood zone in the future, because they, this sort of struck me as if Novato has not as much flooding as Ross Valley. It's pretty scary. You know, Ross Valley is pretty scary, and we have some significant funding, but it's still pretty scary. And because of resistance in our area, we'll never get to do what we want to do. But anyway, thank you so much for all your work, Olivia. I just think if we can make it a little more beefed up, that'll help.
Thank you, Commissioner Kohler. Yeah, I was going to suggest, Olivia and Jason, I know we usually have a kind of recommendation section at the end. And usually that's about what we're going to do, action items for LAFCO, but I don't know that if you thought about how to kind of just put package those all up, all the, as Barbara referred to, the red flags.
Yeah,
how were you planning on that?
Yeah, what you're referring to, Commissioner or Chair McEntee, is the what work LAFCO has to do afterwards. This report really doesn't have anything LAFCO needs to do, but I do hear the comment that we want to raise the concern about, make it a little bit louder in the report, that there is a serious funding issue, and that will be put into determination that's where it belongs. So we will make sure to put that as a louder voice in that section. Okay, so from your point of view, that the things that are more recommendations to the agency would go in the determination section versus yeah, okay. Correct. Okay, good. Are there any further deliberative comment? Oh, no, I think we got that. I don't see any other hands raised. Any further comments from the commission? Okay, seeing none, since this is an information only item, we can go ahead and actually, Madam Chair, if we have a motion to continue this item to the next meeting, okay, that will save us public noticing requirements for this at the next. I see. Yeah, sorry, I remember that now from the top. All righty, then would anyone like to make a motion to continue this item?
I'll move the continuation.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Oh, I withdraw.
Okay. Barbara, you can have it if you want.
All right, moved and seconded. Olivia, please call the roll.
Vice Chair Murray,
Aye.
Commissioner Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner Arnold,
Aye.
Commissioner Kohler.
Aye.
Commissioner Caius,
Aye.
Commissioner Loader,
Aye.
Chair McEntee.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Thank you very much, Olivia. We will move on. We're done with our public hearing items. We'll move on to our business items. Item number 8 is approval of COBRA payment agreement with the county. Jason.
Sure. As we've been talking about for the last plus year of time, the county has been slowly moving us out of various processes. We're actually starting to see us being removed out of their benefits packages. We will still get the same benefits we get as the county employees get. It's just that we get assigned our own number, and the county won't be managing any of it for us. We'll be paying all of our own bills. We'll have to deal with all this stuff on our own. One of the things the county flagged was the need to have COBRA. If an employee leaves, we have to provide COBRA services to that employee as the employer. In order for us to do it, it would be rather time consuming and frustrating for me to have to do on my own, because I don't do HR payroll things, and having to learn how to do this once every 2 or 3 years, because hopefully I keep staff at least for 2 or 3 years between when someone leaves. It's going to take me a lot of time to figure out how to do it each time we have to do it. The county did come up with a program, and they're offering it not just to us, but to other special districts that are in the same situation we are, where for 37 cents per month per employee, we can get someone else. We'll have an outside vendor can do all of our COBRA stuff. All I have to do is tell them we've hired a new staffer, and then when that staffer leaves, I tell them the staffer has left, and then they handle the entire COBRA process on our behalf. We don't have to do a thing for it. So for a 3-employee operation, that's $1.11 a month. If you think about it, if we were lucky and kept staff and had no one leave for 3 years and eventually had them leave in 3 years, you're talking $40 of cost to us. That's less than a half an hour of my time to do that work. I think it's definitely worth the value to have this COBRA plan, this arrangement that the county helped set up for us and the other folks. So what I'm asking for is authorization to assign the attached MOU with the County of Marin to have a company called CYC, which is Connect Your Care, run this service on our behalf. It's a 5-year agreement. That's what the county has with CYC. Clearly, I'm assuming that they will continue to have that agreement going well beyond the 5 years, but you just have to have terms of service for an agreement. So that's what the current terms are. So that's my request at this point or staff is requesting that you do this. If we don't, the county will simply tell us you're now responsible for your own COBRA stuff, and we will have to figure it out on our own. Please don't make me do that. That is my staff.
Okay. Any questions from the commission? Okay, I don't see any hands raised. Is there any public comment on this item?
There are no hands raised and no emails received.
Okay, so seeing no public comment, we'll close public comment for this item and bring it back to the commission for deliberation or a motion. Does anyone have any deliberative comments or want to make a motion?
Sashi?
Yes.
Real quick. So it's great that the county could do this, the Connect Your Care. Was there any other vendors?
The county did not inform me of any other vendors, and at $1.11 a month, I'm not sure it's worth our time to go out and find out if there's someone else who can do it for cheaper. We'll just spend too much time and energy trying to figure that part out.
And Jason, as the vendor expires, we just roll into a new contract, or we have to stay on it when county switches over vendors? How is that renewal process?
Everything has to be run through the county, because while we have our own identification number for our benefits program, it is still the county benefits. And so the county is still the one responsible for, or we still have to go through the county to do it. So I would assume in 5 years, if the county switches, they're simply going to say, we're going from CYC to this new vendor, and they'll tell us, hey, here's who we're doing, here's the cost. And we go through this process again in 5 years to say, we're approving the contract that the county is giving us for the vendor. I'm assuming they're not going to go to someone who's going to be a lot more expensive unless CYC raises their prices dramatically.
Okay, yeah, you guys aren't represented, so I just I guess, you know, working closely with the county in the future, so something doesn't happen and you don't drop off and this thing doesn't become an issue. But again, I thank current staff for doing this. It's really great, very innovative to do this. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Vice Chair Murray. Any other comments, or does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll move it.
Second,
Moved and seconded. Olivia, please call the roll.
Vice Chair Murray,
Aye.
Commissioner Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner Arnold,
aye.
Commissioner Kohler,
Aye.
Commissioner Caius,
Aye.
Commissioner Loader,
Aye.
Chair McEntee.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Thank you, Olivia. We will move on to business item number 9, accept and file fiscal year 2018-19 audit, along with discussion and possible action for future LAFCO audits. Jason, staff report, please.
Sure. There are 2 parts to this item. The first part is accepting and receiving the fiscal year 18-19 audit. You have that in your packet. I sent it to you the day I got it. I forwarded it to you, so you had hopefully enough time to read and review it. From a high-level perspective, I'm very happy with the audit. You may recall the audits when I first started were not very good. There were quite a few issues that we needed to work out. And at this point, everything but one item has been completely resolved. And we have no new items to report. The only item is a repeat from a previous year around the reconciliation of monies, which the report does say is not, a significant amount. So I'm very happy with the report. I think that, thanks to our bookkeeper, and staff, Olivia and Jaron have also helped, try and figure out how to create and solve some of the problems that we've had in the past. So I'm very happy with this audit. Happy to answer any questions on the audit itself before I go to the second half of this item, which is future audits.
Any questions from the commission on the audit itself before we go to the further recommendations?
Okay. So seeing none for future recommendations, there is a state law that was passed in 2013 that basically says you can't use the same person to do your audits for more than 6 years. This year's audit, this audit that you see in front of you today, is the 6th year that we've had the same person do our audit. The person who does it works for a group called RJ Riccardi and Associates. They do have multiple people that can do audits. So we would, if we just, excuse me, if we stayed with them, we would have to switch the person who physically does our audit, but they have the capacity to do that because they're a large enough firm. But it also has been 6 years in some cases for us to have gone out and seen what else is out there, what else is available. It would be my recommendation at this point that we do kind of what we did with the payroll services when we switched it from ADP to Paychex, authorize me to go out and do some research, find out if there's other firms out there, what their basic costs might be for us, and to bring back a recommendation to our April meeting to approve the a vendor to do our fiscal year 1920 audit, which will be the next audit that needs to be done. We're actually ready to do it. This audit took a little bit longer to do. Part of it is COVID. Part of it is unfortunately, RJ was just a little slow in getting some stuff done. We had to repeat some parts of the process because of it. So my goal would be just to find out who else is out there, if there's a better pay option to do that. So the recommendation in front of you today is to accept and file the current audit that you have, the 18-19 audit, and then authorize staff to do some research and come back to the April meeting with a recommendation for the 19-20 audit.
And we would, in getting proposals, Riccardi with a new partner would also be open to bid. Okay.
I would fully give them the option to. Whether or not they sent us a proposal, I don't know, but I would definitely give them the option to.
Okay. Any questions on the selection of an audit partner, whether we want to authorize Jason on that front? Okay, I don't see any questions in the commission. Is there any public comment on this item on either the audit or the discussion of pursuing other options for auditors?
We have no hands raised and no emails received.
Okay, so seeing no public comment, we'll go ahead and close the public comment on this item and bring it back to the commission for deliberation or any or a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept the current audit, and I would strongly agree with having Jason go out and check on what the options are and then come back to make a recommendation to us for a future auditor.
Great. Do we have a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Olivia, will you please call the roll?
Vice Chair Murray,
Aye.
Commissioner Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner Arnold,
Aye.
Commissioner Kohler,
Aye.
Commissioner Caius,
Aye.
Commissioner Loader,
Aye.
Chair McEntee.
Aye.
Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you so much, Olivia. All right, then we will move to the executive officer report.
Okay, as always, I'll roll through these items as quickly as I can. And if you want to stop me, I'll take a quick breath between items. So if someone has a question, they can raise their hand and I can, we'll let them ask the question before I roll to the next item. First one is your budget update. As you may remember, excuse me, in the staff memo, I mentioned that I noticed that there was an error that looked like something was an error with our salary and our overall spending percentages. We did review that and did realize that there was an error made on the salary line items. Somehow, for some reason, one of our payrolls got entered in twice into QuickBooks rather than the one time it should have been. So the number that's in there is a little high. The number that you have in your report is 61.7% of our total funding, which is above what it should have been and why it caught my eye. It really is 53%, which is the correct amount for it to be at once you correct for that error, which takes our overall spending for the year from 54.3 to 49.6. So we're well under. We're coming in good as far as our overall spending goes. All of our line items are pretty much where they should be. You know, I made mention of one or two line items that are a little bit off, but for the most part, and overall, we're in good shape for how we're spending our money for this year. So then moving on to the next item is the current pending proposals. We actually had a very active day today. We had 2 CSA dissolutions, application approval that you see added. We just got in a application from MMWD, did an application that we are currently in the 30-day review for. We anticipate that coming forward at our next meeting. You'll find out that is MMWD turning themselves in, realizing that they've been servicing a customer for a very long time, and that technically wasn't in the district, so they caught it. They're now telling us about it and are looking to get it fixed, which is actually a good thing and a positive that they're self-reporting an error in their system that no one has caught for, I think it's 20 plus years. So we'll be getting that. We are getting hopefully close to receiving, you may remember we did an emergency OSA for a parcel in the country club area of San Rafael, or unincorporated San Rafael, technically it's one of the pockets. The applicant has connected but hasn't officially submitted an application to us yet. They had an issue with the original person who was doing the work for them. They've switched and the person's now taking care of it. We're now just waiting for them to get the map and legal finished. Hopefully by our next meeting, we will have that application in hand, whether we have it in time to actually put it on the agenda or put it on a future agenda. Our goal is to hopefully have that one completed and done as well. So that's a positive. We are also anticipating, as always, there's a few folks that are out there talking to us about things, but none of them have arrived yet. So when they do, we'll let you know as they come in. Update on the workshop. We are looking, Chair McEntee and I have had some discussions since the last meeting. The joint meeting with the other LAFCO, while a great concept, something I think that would be useful to do in the future, we've kind of switched gears a little bit and are looking at doing a workshop forum for Marin County agencies to have a discussion about shared services, consolidations, things like that. Like, what does it take to do it? How do people have it? Given all of the stuff going on with COVID and a lot of agencies having some financial issues, now is a good time for us to be having a discussion about, is there ways for people to share services? Like, you know, you have in Tiburon and Belvedere, they share several services. They have the same library system. They have the same rec and park system. You have like things like Central Marin Fire and Central Marin Police where they merged services together that way. So we think it might be a good opportunity. We're looking at right now, April 29th to do this workshop. It'll be something where we have like 2 panels. We're still working out all of the details, but we think April 29th is a good date to do it. It will be a morning, won't be more than 3 hours. So like something from 9 to 12, although it might be shorter than that once we actually get everything built into place. So would encourage everyone to kind of mark their calendars now if you're available that morning to leave some time open to join us. We'll have some panelists to come in and talk about, you know, how others have done it already. We'll have a discussion about how LAFCO can play a role and help people in doing it through our working group process. I'm pretty excited about this item. I think it'll be a good thing. If the key is, can we get enough electeds and key staff people to show up to it, will be the main determination to me whether or not it's a huge success or not. But that'll be one of the goals we have, is to get as many folks to attend as possible so they can hear about how this stuff works and maybe put the inkling in their head that this isn't like, it may sound like a scary thing, but it's really not super scary. We can work our way through it and get stuff done and have more efficient, effective, costly government in a good way. Chair McAdoo, do you want to add anything to that item? I know you've been working on that with me.
Yeah, thank you. That was a great report. I'm very curious to know what everybody thinks about that date and whether they think they can be there and encourage other electeds to attend. I think Jason just had a great idea of highlighting the different working shared services and consolidation models that we have in the county, and then another panel on how one would do such a thing. Just it's going to be the more effective it'll be more effective if we have more special district and city town electeds there to hear this. So I think we may be reaching out to some of you. I spoke to Alternate Commissioner Campbell today about getting his help on getting some panelists for this. But welcome everybody's ideas, and hope that everybody will make an effort to promote the workshop so that we can get this on people's calendars and in their thoughts. And this, I think a good outcome of this would be that we get more people calling Jason to come to their board meetings, to be involved more early on. As you all know, LAFCO is a slow boil. We like to get involved a good 10 years ahead of anything that might possibly happen. So this is kind of just trying to seed that, look, if there's something like this that you're thinking about down the road, keep us in the mix. Think of us as a resource, as a neutral convener. I think Jason has done an excellent job with the working groups on the MSRs that we've done so far. And Jason and Jaron, I think, and I'm sure Olivia as well. So that's the goal of this workshop, is to seed those conversations and make sure that LAFCO is involved early so that we can help everybody be successful.
What's the date again?
April 29th.
Okay, thank you.
Mark it in the morning. For right now, pencil in 9 to 12, although I don't anticipate it actually being from 9 to 12. It'll be something a little bit shorter than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Jason, as I mentioned to you earlier, if my wife divorces me for having that on her birthday, I will blame you.
I understand that, Commissioner. That's why I called you before we set the date on that, just to make sure you would understand.
I know. I'm so far I'm a chicken, and I have not mentioned it to her, and I probably won't mention it to her until the 28th of April.
Okay. I don't know why she wouldn't think that would be a romantic thing to do on her birthday, but that's that's just my thought of what romantic is, I guess. So then any other questions? If I don't see any other comments or questions on that, we'll move on to the next item. One of the things Commissioner Kohler had asked is to have a LAFCO working group updates. It's not something I've included on in the past, but you'll see that in the future on my executive officer reports, is to get updates on where we're at with the various working groups. There have been quite considerable delays in most of the working group stuff. COVID really put everyone back on its heels. While COVID itself isn't an excuse not to do things, the staffs have been very busy dealing with COVID-related activities. So it's been hard to get them moving and going forward in a productive way. I have, since the beginning of this year, we have had the San Rafael Fire Working Group meet again. There's been a lot of touchy issues with that. San Rafael doesn't want to give up its independent, give up fire department and put it into some other thing. And so we're trying to figure out, how do we allow Marinwood to basically get rid of fire services, but not necessarily, but San Rafael can't legally cover them unless they get annexed in. So there's some questions there that we're trying to figure out and work through. And so we've started meeting again. We had a meeting last month in January to start that discussion again. So hopefully that one will start to move forward a little bit quicker as we're starting to figure out what is the exact model that can work. Once we figure out that model, I think it becomes a lot easier to figure out how to make it happen. So right now it's figuring out that model. The other working group that we've had for a while is the San Quentin Village one. That one got delayed because of COVID, because we needed to get the prison to have discussions with us. And they, as everyone knows, had a very serious COVID outbreak occur there. And so talking to anyone there about anything other than their core functions and COVID related activities was impossible. Things have gotten a little bit better there. So now we have a meeting set up. I think it's next month with Ross Valley, county staff representing San Quentin Village and prison staff, as well as Caltrans staff as well, because they actually have a yard on the other side of San Quentin Village that dumps its sewage into their system. So we're going to have all those folks sitting down in the room, which is, I think, a very positive thing. I'm hopeful within the next few months we should be doing our public outreach in the area and talking to the residents, and hopefully getting something done. If not this year, getting everything in line to have it completed by the beginning of next year, I think is a good target date for that to occur. But there are still some sticky legal issues to deal with because of all the various players and things not having legal agreements in place. So I don't want to put Ross Valley in an odd situation where they're taking on a new sewage area that doesn't have all of its legal ducks in a row. And they rightfully don't want to take that on either without having all those legal ducks in a row. So dealing with two state agencies can slow things down quite a bit. And so we'll continue to work that through and hopefully have it to us, assuming that we can get everything agreed to, not just in principle, but with the lawyers involved in a timely manner is still my hope. The other big one that we've been having discussions about, I know Commissioner Kohler has asked me about this, is the Ross Valley area fire services. We currently have a JPA there. I did talk with, and I apologize, Commissioner Kohler, I didn't get a chance to talk to you in more detail about this prior to the meeting. I did have a chance to talk with Chief Weber, who is the fire chief for the JPA there. He had a chance to talk with the city managers and the independent district that make up that JPA. They're requesting that we hold off on doing anything on that for a few months. They have a very sticky issue that they're dealing with around firehouses and reconstruction of one of them up in that area. And so they've asked not to have us do our working group until they figure that particular parcel out. And then once they do, they're all interested and want to see this working group get moving forward. They just don't want to have this long-term issue muddy the waters on trying to figure out a much more immediate short-term need that they have to work through. So on that request, I'm going to kind of pull the brakes on it a little bit, let them check back with them in April, May, see where they're at and see if it makes sense at that point to get the group going and start it again. And I'm going to apologize to our Tiburon Peninsula folks. We have several working groups there. Those have not really gone anywhere yet. I've just been so busy with a lot of other stuff. While they're important and I want to see them done, they're not as time sensitive as some of the other stuff I've had to deal with. Part of it, getting Olivia trained up on how to do a lot of stuff now that she's trained up, I'm getting more free time on my hands to start getting back to some of those working group things. So I apologize to our Tiburon Peninsula folks that I haven't gotten to your working groups to the same level I wish I could have. The one good thing is some of our MSRs we're doing now don't have the same level of working group need. So I'll be able to get myself caught up with everything else going on. I do see Commissioner Kohler, you have your hand up. I'm assuming you have a question for me on something.
Yeah, two questions. Well, the Ross Valley firing thing is because Ross is looking at not rebuilding their firehouse. And I think that decision will be made in the next month or so. So good timing to check back.
Yep.
Just another suggestion, and maybe this isn't a good suggestion, but you mentioned the San Rafael fire and Marinwood fire. You might want to look at, so Sleepy Hollow is a fire district that joined the JPA for Ross Valley, which is not a fire district. So there might be some similarities there that might be helpful for how Marinwood could fold into San Rafael.
Yeah, no,
I'm sure it's stickier than what you want to talk about, but
yeah, I think we're getting a little more into weeds. I will say that is something we looked at. The one difference between Marinwood and Sleepy Hollow is Marinwood wants to be out of fire. They don't want to have any responsibility for fire ever again. And so there's like a huge difference there between how this could work. So we're trying to figure out how do we get Marinwood so it has zero responsibility moving forward and have San Rafael be able to cover those fire services as an out of service type agreement. And so there's a few things like maybe creating a CSA is like one option that potentially could work there.
thank you.
Yep. Any other questions on the working group stuff? Okay. In that case, then the last item I have, although on the agenda, although not the last item for me to talk about, is committee assignments. According to LAFCO policy, the chair gets to appoint who he or she, in this case she, wishes to have serve on all the committees, and it looks like our chair may have disappeared from our meeting. So I'll quickly go over these with you. The Budget and Work Plan Committee is going to be Commissioner Arnold, Commissioner Kohler, and Commissioner Kaez. That's the one committee that has a very set rule that it has to have one city, one county, and one special district person represented on it. And so that's our way of making sure those three are there. Two of them are returning. One of them is new. I always like to see like a little bit of turnover and some stability at the same time. So I think this works as in a good way. You should anticipate probably middle of next week getting an email from either me or Olivia requesting what your availability is in early March to do a quick meeting to have a discussion about what our budget will look like. And so you should expect that. For the Legislative Committee, this round is going to be Commissioner Loader, Commissioner Murray, and Commissioner Skelton. Since this is a new year for the legislature, they normally have I should say this is year one of a 2-year cycle for the legislature. They're in the process right now. Cal LAFCO, normally the end of February, beginning of March, tends to have a review of all the legislation that's out there. Once Cal LAFCO does its review, I will call for a meeting of our committee to go over all the stuff that Cal LAFCO's identified. Since they do such a good job of reviewing everything, it saves us a lot of time of having to go through hundreds of bills to figure out what actually might be LAFCO related. So anticipate something probably in the March, early April timeframe for us to have a meeting to try and do approvals before our April meeting. And then the final one is Policy and Personnel Committee, which is Commissioner Campbell, Conley, and Chair McEntee serve on that one. I don't anticipate that one having a lot of work to do, at least at the beginning of the year. There may be some work depending on how the rollout of our benefit stuff out of the county works. We might have to do a follow-up, keeping in mind Policy and Personnel has done a ton of work the last 2 years. And so it's kind of nice to see that they've, I think, gotten us to such a point where there may be one small meeting that occurs during this year, but there may also be no meetings that occur for that committee this year. So I'll keep that committee updated as we move forward and need to do stuff. So those are the committees as assigned for this year. You know, as always, the chair can make changes mid-year if changes need to be made for one reason or another. We only have 9 of the 11 commissioners on, so we rotated the 2 that were not on committees last year or on committees this year, and 2 members who were on committees last year, not on committees this year. So we're trying to make sure that no one's going empty for a long time, and everyone gets to play a role in a committee at some point in time. So that's the committee assignments report. Okay, seeing no comments on that. The other items that are not on the agenda, just quick reminders for you, is it's Form 700, AB 1234 time of the year. So for all of you who are already elected public members, you don't have to do anything for us, as long as when you're filling out your forms, particularly the Form 700, that you list LAFCO as one of the other agencies that you serve on. You don't have to do anything for us. And if you're filing it with your local jurisdiction, if you want to give us a copy, great. But as long as your local jurisdiction has it, that's all you need to do for us. For AB 1234, Olivia will be reaching out to each of you or to your city or district clerks to make sure that you've done your training. We do need to have a copy of your certificate, so we will do that. For our 2 public seat members, Olivia will be reaching out to you to make sure that you filled out your Form 700. Those do get turned into us, although everything is done electronically now through the state system, so it's technically not us that you turn it into. You just do the form online, and as long as you've completed it and told us you've completed it, you're good to go. We will also make sure that you get your 1, 2, 3, 4 training. Olivia is looking into some online versions. In the past, we've saddled onto one of our last 2 years ago, for example, I did it with Mill Valley. I was invited to their training, and I think Commissioner Skelton, you may have joined me at that meeting. So we'll be since we don't have that as an option this time around because everyone's not doing in-person meetings. We're gonna, I think, like CSDA and some others have some online courses that we can do. So we'll just have to do our courses online for those of us that are not getting it through our other elected bodies. And then finally, or not finally, but for April, I want to warn you now, expect a long April meeting. Today, you know, we still got a little bit more to go, but I expect the April meeting to be long. We will have our budget. We will have, my next announcement is about the public seat being open. Don't forget that that's open. We'll be doing interviews for the public seat, the alternate public seat. Make sure I'm clear on that. Chris Skelton's seat comes up for its regular appointment process. So we will have that. We will have our budget. We will have Olivia's final approval, hopefully final approval on her flood zone. Jaren will have the Twin Cities MSR to report out on. And so it's just going to be a lot on that agenda. You also have my staff review. So there's going to be a lot on that agenda. So just plan for that to be a longer night for you. So if you're planning to have dinner, I would definitely recommend eating before, not after, because you'll be eating a lot later than normal. And that's all I have to report on for my executive officer's report. Commissioner Murray, I see you have your hand up.
Hey, Jason, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. You're on a roll there, but back on the item about appointments for Ledge Committee, there are other sources besides CASA. So MCSDA, I think planning in the state of California is a really good planning group. There's some eminent domain folks as well, but for special districts, there is some COVID relief that's happening right now. It's Garamendi and Sanima out of Arizona. They're HR 535S91. So what I plan on doing is when things come up like this timely, I'll forward it to Jason. He could share it with our chair to see if, how we disseminate this. I plan on bringing this through the MCSDA, and this one's kind of special district related, but I think some of this might be timely. We had some conversation in the past, and what do we do with a kind of quick turn on legislation? So there'll probably be further discussion on that. Anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on the EO report?
If there are none, then is there any public comment on the EO report?
We have no hands raised and no emails received.
Okay, so we'll close the public comment, and if there any further comments from the commission? Seeing none, we will move on to, we're going to do a closed session. Okay, thank you very much. We are back in session after our closed session. Mala, will you do the report out, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. There is no reportable action from closed session.
Thank you very much. And we'll go to commissioner announcements and requests. Any requests or commissioner announcements? Seeing none, we will move to adjournment. We'll adjourn to the next meeting, and it will be April 8th, 2021 at 7 p.m. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.